Game theory is a term that gets tossed around a fair bit in the Bitcoin space, and today I'll be going over what that means, and why Bitcoin has the best chance of beating all other monetary games currently being played. There's a pretty good chance that if you've been in the Bitcoin space paying attention to what's been going on for the last month or more, that you've heard the name Preston Pysh. If you're like me, you've watched a number of his interviews, you've seen him on stages talking about Bitcoin, talking to other people about Bitcoin, and there's a good chance that you've come to appreciate the brilliant mind that Preston is. One of the best things about Preston is how good of an interviewer he is. He recently sat down with Scott Lindbergh, who created a game based on Bitcoin. The game that Scott came up with is called HODL Up. Travel the time chain from the Genesis block in 2009 through 2040 when the last Bitcoin ever is finally mined. HODL, HODL, HODL. May the best HODLer win. I'm going to play a clip here where Scott is talking to Preston Pysh about geniuses descending in one place.
I continue to be blown away. I keep underestimating the amount of talent and the amazing people that are drawn to this space. It's pretty mind-blowing. And then on top of that, so you have a lot of brain power there. And then you look at the attendees and you have 150, 200 people who are willing to shell out some money that they could have spent to invest in some sats. They are away from their family. There's something about while it's worthwhile for me to hang out with these intense brainiacs.
I was in a Twitter Spaces with Brian DeMint of the Orange Pill app, and if you haven't signed up and started stacking some friends that stack sats, you might want to get on that because the benefits are monumental. And he asked me, what is making me the most bullish? And there's a lot of things about Bitcoin that makes me bullish, but one of the biggest things would be how many absolute brilliant people are in this space developing Bitcoin, working on Bitcoin. It is impossible for me to look at all these people, Odell, Preston Pysh, Saifedean Amos, Michael Saylor, etc., and go, no, they're all morons. Scott Lindbergh is saying the same thing. People are coming to these conferences. All of these brilliant people are congregating to talk about this thing, this Bitcoin thing. Why would they do that if there was truly nothing there? That doesn't make sense. If you've ever been part of an online game where buffs and nerfs are a normal part of the game, then you will absolutely understand what I'm about to talk about here. But to set the stage, I'm going to play another clip here from that interview where Preston and Scott are talking about how anyone can build on Bitcoin.
The thing that I keep going back to is this open network. How can anybody compete with this idea of anybody in the world being able to build on top of this open network versus you look at the legacy financial rails and everything's closed. You have to ask for permission. You have to be in a privileged spot in order to do it. But when you really kind of look at what's the one thing, if we were going to deduce it down to, it's the idea of open networks, and good luck trying to compete against that.
To help you get a concrete idea of what Preston was talking about there, let's go over some numbers of a recent video game, a large video game that just came out that you maybe have heard about. Diablo 4 came out earlier this year, and according to Exputer here, Diablo 4's in credits revealed that a total of 9,166 developers worked on the entry. Diablo 4 earns more than 666, interesting number there, million in sales in the first 5 days, setting a new Blizzard record, $666 million in sales. And then we've got this here from Dextero. In the announcement, they revealed that in just 5 days, sales of Diablo 4 had surpassed 666 million in revenue. If you apply some math, the sales estimates from that figure suggest somewhere between 9 and 10 million copies of the game have been sold. You've got 9,166 devs working on the game. Let's assume that 100% of them tested the game for 2 hours a day for 4 years. That gets us to a total playtest time of 26,764,720 hours. 2 hours times 365 days is 730 hours a year. 730 hours a year times 9,166 testers is 6,691,180 hours per year. Times 4 years is 26,764,720 hours over 4 years that the testers probably not, put into the game. Now, how many hours do you think the players put into the game? Take a pause here if you need to and think about that. All right, you ready? From the gamer, Diablo 4 has already been played for the equivalent of 10,000 years. That's like playing 24 hours a day since the beginning of human civilization. Diablo 4 has been out for a day and has already proven itself to be a huge hit. It's not only the fastest selling Blizzard game of all time, but it has also been played for 93 million hours, which is roughly 10,616 years in a day. It only launched yesterday, but those who bought the deluxe edition entered in an early access period, which also inadvertently started a class war. 10,000 years is impressive as is, but Blizzard phrased it as playing 24 hours a day since the beginning of human civilization. That's a lot of Diablo. This is the difference between a closed game and an infinite game. When the game is still behind closed doors and it's just the devs and their testers working on the game, there's only so much that they can figure out. And then the game is released into the wild, and the players dump tens of millions of hours into it in a single day. And what they figure out blows everything that the devs ever did out of the water in a matter of days. Things actually got so bad with Diablo 4, with players dumping out so much damage, they had to have an emergency patch. "We want to acknowledge everyone's feedback in regard to reducing player power," said Fletcher. "We know it's bad. We know it's not fun." The reason I just spent so much time breaking down those numbers for you is because I have been a part of many different gaming communities, from board games to card games to online games, many of them. And inevitably, people complain.
"Oh, my favorite character is garbage. I can't get 12 kills a second with the new dagger build, and I've got to switch to dual-handing axes, and I don't like axes. I don't have the epic axe anymore."
I've heard it all. And if you've ever been part of a gaming community, you have as well. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And something that I've tried to remind players is that the number of hours going in when the players play blows everything that the testers did out of the water by orders of absolute magnitude. All right, so what does this have to do with Bitcoin? You've got a bunch of video games and people playing games and min-maxing and getting the best builds and doing whatever, and the developers didn't see that or they couldn't have accounted for everything. Okay, fine, I understand that. Who cares about Bitcoin? What? Connect it for me, man. Here's the connection to Bitcoin. Right now, we have a closed system. Our money is controlled by a very small number of people. They say who gets what, and they are the arbiters. They are in complete control of the rules. I don't know how many people work in the banking sector at large, but it's not everyone on the planet. But everyone on the planet has the potential to do something with Bitcoin. In this next clip, Scott is pretty much saying the exact same thing. The more minds you have working on something, the better chance it has to succeed.
There's no way of competing with more minds working on something, right? So the more people who are working on this, the better. And when you're in a closed environment, like you work at Microsoft or whatever, and you're in a little thing, you're going to develop whatever this program is that I'm told by like developers, like they really hate it, right? It's cumbersome and can't do whatever. Take Nostr, for example, in 6 months or less than a year or whatever, like all these people coming in.
If you've been a part of an online community, then you understand what it's like when players figure things out. They go, oh,
If you do this, if you take that armor set, you put those leg pieces in, you put these gems in those correct sockets, you can do fire rockets across the entire room and be making 20,000 gold every 5 minutes. All you have to do is go back out, reset the room, come back and stand on that one spot. But if you stand right here, start spamming fire rockets, 20,000 gold every 5 minutes. Insane. Take advantage of this right now before they get patched out.
this is the same kind of thing happening with Bitcoin. You've got hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people working in this space in all kinds of different things. You've got the HR people, you've got Layer 4, Martel Fox over here working on developing things, bringing new people in. You've got people over here working on wine and getting paid in Bitcoin. You've got people like Scott Lindbergh making actual games, building a board game called Hodl Up so you can share the information and educate people about how Bitcoin works. There are so many thousands upon thousands of hours being poured into Bitcoin every single day that it boggles the mind. There is so much momentum behind this that the game theory says, just wait and see what is coming down the pipeline. Just wait and see. And for the next leg of your choose your own adventure saga, we've got my video here on the right talking about Harvard and Bitcoin and why you might want to invest in the latter and avoid the former. And then over here on the left, we've got Rustin's video talking about Tim Draper and his bullish Bitcoin prediction.